7 o'clock. We will call this meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, June 17th, 2025 at 7 p.m. We'll call this town council work session to order. We'll start off with the pledge of allegiance. Kyle, would you lead us tonight?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Start off with roll call. Start to my left. Doug Smith.
Here.
Dean Renfro.
Here.
Kathy Burke.
Here.
Rick Holsby.
Here.
Jeff Beachy is here. Town manager Mike Yoder.
Yes, here.
Clerk treasurer Kathy Antonelli.
Here.
Fire chief Nick Cantz.
Here.
Town, I was gonna say town marshal. Corporal who moved, correct?
Yes, you want.
Okay. And legal counsel Alex Bowman.
Here.
Okay. All right. Everybody had a chance to review the agenda.
Yes.
Anybody have any changes, corrections, or additions?
No.
No.
Okay, the agenda will stand as published, so we will get right into it. Reports, Mike.
Okay, first up, we have Parker Bright from Voice and BS and A Software. Did you want to talk about why he's gone tonight? Kathy? It's more in your area.
Parker's going to fill them in on what BSNA is, but they have purchased or merged with, taken over, Voice, which is what we use for our forms and what we use for our billing.
Okay.
And they are moving to the cloud and want to take us with them.
Okay.
All right. There you go, Parker.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys, and good evening, everyone. Before I get started, I do appreciate the time this evening, and I just want to thank you all personally. I am gonna go ahead and share my screen. I just have a quick couple of slides that I want to talk through with you guys, and then I do want to allow time for questions as well. So let me know if you guys can see my screen okay. Are you viewing cloud-based ERP software?
Yes.
Yes.
We can see it.
Okay, perfect, awesome. So I am here to talk tonight about Bristol's potential move to the cloud through BSNA/Voice systems. We are calling it Voice Cloud, and this is cloud-based ERP software that truly does empower local governments to thrive. But before I get into the high-level benefits of the cloud, I do want to talk a little bit about BSNA since this is new to you guys. BSNA has been in business for 40 years. They are 100% government focused. And as you can see there, they are close to serving about 3,000 municipalities in about 10 states. Like I mentioned, we are 100% local government focused. And then this last little piece here that I do like to call out is the 99% customer retention rate. So in 40 years of business across 3,000 local government customers, they have lost 4 financial management customers in that 40 years. And that truly does speak to the level of service and support that we do provide to our clients. As I've been doing these presentations and moving around the state, it is very easy for me to say that BSNA is very much the voice of Michigan. They are support driven, and just like with us, when you call in, you are going to get a live person that will direct you right to where you need to be. No automated phone systems or anything like that. And we are always striving to resolve your issues as fast as we can with the highest class customer care. Before I jump in to the benefits that you could expect from a cloud software, I do want to say that Bristol has been a Voice/Keystone customer for over 20 years. And in that time, they have been using the Keystone product. This product here will take you into the next 20 years. And as I dive in, I think some of the great high-level benefits is as long as you have an internet connection and a device, you will be able to access the Voice Cloud program. And not only does it allow you to work remotely, but it still allows you to collaborate remotely through chat or mentions and a couple other features in the system. A very important call out with this is the scalable cost effectiveness. So with you guys moving into the cloud, there is no longer a need for you guys to keep a server on site that you have to maintain and your IT has to keep up with. If voice or if Keystone is the only thing that is on that server today, that is something that you will be able to get rid of and be able to get some costs back. As a part of this being a software of the future, Cloud is updated twice a month, every month, and those updates happen over the weekends. And when Kathy or her staff come in on a Monday, they'll be able to look at the release notes and see what we've added. As well as some advanced security measures. I know security and cybersecurity are a topic throughout the state. With your move to the cloud, that does give you some enhanced measures that you really don't have today with an on-premise server. And then the last little bit is your data in the cloud is backed up every 20 minutes. And if something were to ever happen, that data can be recovered instantly and brought back just for you to be able to use. We do have 2 different data centers that we host data in, and those would be in Arizona and Virginia. And if something were to ever happen to one of them, it would only take us about 20 minutes or less to get you switched over into a different instance. So that is kind of all of the slides that I had for you. I just wanted to be able to share that quickly, and then I wanted to share my remaining time answering any questions if you had any.
I do. Do you share data?
No, your data is your data.
And
You have your own.
there's
You have your
something,
own.
there's something in the contract that would say, that you don't share data, any data at all?
Yeah, I mean, it will state in the contract that you have your own instance in Microsoft Azure.
Okay, and what
So
about,
basically, the server that you have today, it will just be virtually moved to Microsoft Azure, and that's your instance.
okay, so backup, you mentioned backups.
Yeah.
And do we have any backup that can be maintained locally? Instead of just the cloud?
I don't believe so, but that is something I can check into.
Okay, and you're also saying top tier security. What is actually a top tier security?
So most of the security will flow through Microsoft Azure. So you are going to
Yeah, I
be
know.
following the same practices that Microsoft does. But we also give you multi-factor authentication. So that will require a cell phone or some second form of validation to be able to get into your instance.
Is that like the banks where they send you a code or something?
Correct. That's one example of multi-factor authentication.
Okay. That's all I have.
On that multi-factor, do you guys use Authenticator or what form do you use for that?
It's up to you. We personally, when we log into the cloud software, we use Duo.
Okay.
But I think you could use the Authenticator app if you wanted to as well.
Okay, and I've used both, so I'm familiar with
Okay.
those. Kathy, have you used those before?
We use Duo currently.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay,
I use
that's
all-
pretty,
I use
that's pretty standard.
Authenticator, so.
yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
This is more for Kathy. We said, is there anything else on our server or could we eliminate that?
We could eliminate that.
Okay.
Would we want to, or would we use it as a backup?
It's not as secure as the 2 data centers.
The 2 data centers?
Everything's backed up on 2 different data centers, one in Arizona, one in Virginia, so having a backup here is,
Okay.
What's our current annual costs?
What?
Current annual costs, you have any idea?
I didn't look it up. Right, sorry.
Our current annual cost?
I just didn't know how much more is this gonna be, like,
Yeah.
outside of just training.
Just for key fund, I believe, Jill, aren't we about 8,000? I want to say it's about 6 to 8,000 annually. Right now, we just use key fund. They offer other things like key utilities and payroll, HR, that kind of thing, but currently we're just looking at key fund.
Okay, so it's for the finance side,
Yes,
it's what
for
you're
all our
looking at,
billing.
the billings and
Mhm.
everything, okay. But no payroll or anything like that?
No,
So
And
Parker,
because-
the annual fee would be 49.85.
Correct.
Okay. Over the last 5 years, have you guys had price increases? Has that stayed constant? What's the history been with price increases?
Yes, so, with BSNA, they do assess, increases and it is 5% or CPI, whichever is greater. So more than likely, we'll be seeing the 5%.
You said 49.50? I didn't read that.
49.85.
Okay. Oh, thanks. Just-
Okay. Any other questions?
and just a note, that Parker did, since we only have key fund and we're looking at doing this as part of a pilot kind of program for them to onboard new people, they are giving us a discount on page 2.
Yeah, that 14,000,
Mhm.
15,750. Okay.
Yeah, so, just to speak on that, a little bit, this is, just since we are entering the market, with this cloud program this year, we do want to make pricing that is attractive to our customers. And Kathy is actually someone that, our group had looked to work with early on, because it would be a fairly easy install. And so we wanted to incentivize you guys as much as we could, just because we would really like to work with you.
Is there any way that we can find out the cost of, say, for example, if we want to go to payroll or something like that, what the cost, is it done in sections? Like accounting, payroll, whatever else there may be?
There are other and we can add on as we need to. Parker has supplied us with, I believe that other packet is in the packet.
Okay,
I don't think this one is.
not in here, what each section would be.
No, because this is just isolating on key fund, and the one that's in the packet is overall.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
No.
Okay, if not, Parker, thank you for your time tonight. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you guys, and if anything comes up, Kathy knows how to get a hold of me, so I'm always happy to answer your questions.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Parker.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks. Okay, we'll switch over to the agenda. Okay. Next up, the welcome signs.
Yeah, so, Adam.
Yeah.
You're up. We have, so there's a lot of material in your packet. So I think first we'll talk about the welcome to Bristol signs. So I've included a picture of every sign that we have here. Adam took those. So you get an idea of what we have, quality and what they look like. I think one of them's laying on the ground.
Yeah,
Yep, that one right there.
Oh,
Did somebody hit that one too?
No, I think I don't know why it's on the ground. It's now,
Yeah, it's on the north side.
Yeah.
It's one, I think, Niblock or
At
somebody
least
called
it
it.
didn't wrap the
it's,
pole.
it's now in the street department garage, but, so, Adam and I have what what's out front here is sized.
That's the size,
Right
what's
there.
out, yeah, what's out front is sized to what the new one
Would,
from last meeting.
and I think there's some,
71.
pictures, if you keep going in the next packet.
71, just a second. Overall height is 60, okay. I could pull it up myself.
That was the
Good one.
price. We have some pictures with the overlay.
I think it's in that one.
The old-
In here.
Okay. There we go.
That's the
Okay.
larger, that's the larger of the two. With the new one overlaid on top of it.
Okay,
And the next page should be the smaller one with the. So it's kind of a hybrid in between the two size wise compared to what we presented. This is the smaller of the two from the previous two meetings that you guys looked at.
So the mock-up out back here, that's
mock-up
the
is that-
size of
is
the,
It's the size of that panel,
oh, this one or the bigger
this
one?
one right here.
Oh, that's the smaller one.
And that's the two, that's the, yeah, that's the two, that's the size that you guys discussed last time.
You actually want it that long. I kind of like the size that it is now.
The one thing with the new logo, it trends to more of a square or taller than wider sign.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why, that's why we went with the shape.
You know,
So the total cost was
78,000 for all 8 of them. That's down from, just for one, it would have been 12. By doing all 8.
so.
And as you look through the pictures, there's the whole project started, I was driving through for another project to meet somebody, and I noticed the one on the south side of town had a big crack through the middle of it, and was almost
Yeah,
cracked in half and getting ready to fall off the post itself.
Yeah.
And I reached out to Mike and started talking to him about it, and he's like, yeah, go, so I went and got where all they were at, took pictures of all of them to kind of inventory them for you, and they're all in varying levels of wear. But most of them are faded pretty bad, where something needs to be done with them, otherwise you're gonna lose them all.
so I think last time we were at $112,000. Okay. That's definitely more appealing.
you know, any reason why we couldn't have more of the size that we've got now, but instead of putting the logo around Bristol, is to put the logo in a corner and say, welcome to Bristol with the logo.
The Bristol is part of the logo,
Yeah, look at Doug's shirt. That's
so so if you take,
part of the logo.
yeah, you can either take your logo apart, or you're gonna have Bristol and then welcome to Bristol, it's gonna repeat itself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Guess we're all entitled to our opinions, but my opinion is, and you're gonna hear it, is that looks great for our stationery and everything else. But I really like that, because Bristol's heritage is that river, and that's why I like the old sign. Doesn't mean we gotta have that wood. But I like, and it says, you know, a great place to visit and a wonderful place to call home. You know, the other was just, well, no. I guess that's why I really like that one, and it has the river and the canoe and the bridge and stuff that, to me, is about Bristol. Been here my whole life, and that's the way Bristol is, the rivers.
I like it.
That's my opinion.
I like the size of the one we have now. Period.
Should you not incorporate the two and have the logo here and then something picturesque to the right of it?
I mean, it doesn't have to look exactly like that, but why not have something to do with the river? Our heritage is that river.
That's what the logo
Whole
is,
town.
basically.
yeah, that's kind of the contemporary. The logo is the contemporary portion of the river.
Mhm.
So this is
I just,
representing the river.
I just think it's too large. Myself,
What's too large?
the overlay,
This one right here?
yes.
So
I think it's too far down. I mean, first of all, let's figure out, I know we got a couple of these signs by people's driveways. With the extra length, are they gonna be able to have good visibility? That's one thing to think about.
It's narrower also, so you,
Yeah.
so we can, location wise is something we can work out through the project.
I think it's too big. But that's my opinion, so,
So it is narrower, but it's taller.
yeah.
I don't know that, where would we have an instance where it's blocking someone's driveway?
120. They've got one right next to their driveway down
Oh, Cheryl.
there.
I thought you had said,
Bishop.
Mike, the ones on 120 were gonna be going out further.
Yeah,
Cause you were talking, you had mentioned about
I'm not-
moving some of them to the new entrance to town.
Yeah, the sign is narrower, so I think we can position them within the right of way, so it's not a slight distance.
Plus you have the current design, you have the third post that had the different organizations in town that is gonna be, from talking with Mike, he said most of those,
Well, actually, I was gonna ask tonight if that needs to be replicated or not. Those organizations, well, one's the,
he said one of them at least wasn't even
right,
in town anymore.
yeah,
Well, you got the Legion and the Sonic Lodge.
yeah.
Yeah.
We can easily do that, this is somewhat like what you guys, what's currently there, we can easily do that, or if that's something you guys don't want, we can. Obviously, if we have to add that in, that's gonna add to the cost.
I just think it's too.
I don't know if those are a must-have.
I wonder, did those organizations do it at their cost initially?
No,
I don't think so.
we paid for the cost of those.
Yeah, and I
Well,
don't,
the problem is, if you look at,
Half of them are broken or missing it
Yep.
now.
yeah,
that one's missing half the sign.
yeah. And that's weird. Of course, that could have been hit by a rock or something.
Yeah, snowplow. That one's missing.
And actually, those signs, even though I know why we put them up there originally, they're actually too small to actually read from a car when you're going past.
Yeah.
So it's I think the reason why we put them up, if I'm not mistaken, Jeff, we put them up because they were there before.
Yes, they were there when the old brown
The old brown wood,
state park
Monstrosities.
signs were there.
Had the yellow lettering.
Yeah, that looked like a county park.
That's who made them.
Yeah, yeah,
And the new sign is similar, it's modular, I'm not sure, I can't remember what Doug last meeting. So if something happened to one of the posts, you can replace the post. Something happens to one of the faces, you can replace the face, it's not gonna be. If something happens, so it's not, the whole thing doesn't have to be, you know what I mean, it doesn't have to be replaced completely.
yeah.
So it can be put back together easily if something would happen to it.
I know. Can we go to the municipal building signs?
Are those on here too?
Those are down there,
The
that's a
municipal
completely
building.
separate.
Town, the municipal complex, I like both of those. Those look professional.
Yeah, so that
What
one's,
about the one in the back?
That's right.
It doesn't have the logo on it, but it's nice. It's low, so
Okay,
it doesn't
that's-
block
yeah.
people's vision.
yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
that's much better than,
Those two, I like those, but I
Yeah.
still think we ought to look at something different for coming into Bristol.
The other one, the one out front here sort of eliminates that artisanal trees.
or what?
I don't know, you guys told
Oh,
me.
that goofy one?
The evergreen, that, yeah.
yeah, the
So-
weeping, I think it's a weeping cherry or
Oh.
weeping crabtree or something.
That's the way it's supposed to be. I thought it was ugly, but obviously I have no taste.
Both can be true.
You'll never
Both
be an
can be true.
arborist. No, he only knows fields.
He's a farmer, they cut trees down.
I know.
Okay, so,
If you like these two, I can get, I have to get pricing for those.
okay,
Or like
Are these backlit?
no,
One,
those are not illuminated.
What's the?
They need to be with as well lit as,
Looking at.
yeah.
I mean,
Hard to see
I
that
can't
very
pull it
well.
up.
Mhm.
Okay, that one is.
That one is 82 inches from the slab.
From the slab, so it's 24, 82 down.
So the cabinet, the
Okay.
cabinet is 6 foot by,
Okay,
yeah.
Just seeing if we're violating our new development standard.
well, I think we are,
And
the
lighting.
post signs.
Yes, we will.
I think we'll be okay.
well, as long as he agrees, we're fine.
I think we know some folks who'll be able to address that area if need be.
So I'm hearing that you're okay with this. You'd like to get a quote for those two signs. You'd like,
I need to include
That's
us doing them.
7 foot.
Rick?
tall.
yeah,
So the front one's gonna be almost 7 foot tall.
unless you want it shorter.
Sounds good to me.
Well, that one isn't like,
Yeah.
it's high, it's 7 foot tall, which is big, but where it's at, you think about how far back it is from the building's line of sight.
Yeah.
I mean, the road's all the way up here,
You're,
So it's
Behind the
going over
sidewalk.
where the,
behind the
it
eagle.
goes behind the eagle.
oh, where the lovely tree
You
is.
see-
Yeah.
you see
Okay,
eagle
I
on
was
the screen.
thinking here.
So the height really doesn't matter as much on this one. It's
Okay.
make it visible from the road, but it's not gonna be a eyesight issue. Whereas the other one is low enough.
We'll still be able to see the eagle.
Yes.
Well, yeah, there's the eagle right
You can
there.
see the-
Oh, there's the
And
eagle.
then there's,
I thought that was a bush.
yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind seeing this one backlit.
We can do that.
Yeah, I think it needs to be too.
Just the logo.
Especially for a municipal building that, you know, people may need the police in the middle of the night. You know, they need to be able to see that sign.
It sounds like the whole,
Oh, wait.
we don't want to find us.
We want the brick to match the building.
That's what it's supposed to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
The picture, I took a picture up close and then took the further, and obviously, actually, the picture of the brick, it was raining. And then obviously it was a nice sunny day when I took the other pictures.
Yeah.
But the brick is to match the building.
Okay.
And then the colors also would be, I get a PMS book and to match the brown and the tannish in the building also.
We'll talk to JPR, they can get that for us.
gonna say, we can get specs whenever.
We'll get a hold of Edward.
Yep.
Do we have any idea on the cost of these?
No, you
Yeah.
gotta
I thought did I give you a price on this one alone the last time? I think I did, I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't recall. And so we may be able to save some money if we do our own brickwork, so I don't know if any of you know masons and do mason work, you're probably backlogged until
There's one time he's got lodge.
20. All right.
You can always ask
We'll gladly
someone
do
else.
it for you, but we
John
can
Young
also
would
do
know
just
bricklayer.
a cabinet,
That's
set
it,
it,
yeah.
and you guys can have someone do the masonry work around it or do the masonry work and then we set the cabinet on it.
Our new sidewalks.
So, yeah, he's got a good idea. I'll say something to John Young. He may know.
He should
do that.
So I'll say anything that comes through, I have to mark up, so take the markup.
We don't-
Mason work.
Yeah.
Well, if you want us to be in business still, we have to.
Well,
My boss says we have
It's
to.
a
where are we
markup.
gonna get the money?
Don't we get a discount for multiple signs?
Well,
We're on the outside.
where are we gonna get this money?
All right, so.
You will, this will be, if you do both of them, it'll be obviously, if, just like with the welcome to Bristol sign, if you do the front and the back at the same time, we can do the installs at the same time, that's where you save your money.
Ooh, buy one,
On
get
that.
one free.
All right.
It's not that good.
It's a BOGO.
And we made progress because we
Yes.
decided on this site.
Yes.
But I'm not sure where we're
Do you
at.
have any other comments or
So
with
let's,
the welcome to signs?
yeah, let's just go online. Thoughts on these guys? Doug?
What guy?
I've shown it to a few people and they really like it.
Which one?
The new,
This one?
yeah,
This one.
they say it kind of brings it into the 21st century.
It's a more durable material. Both the letters and the print and the logo have a lifetime warranty, just so you know. For fading, breaking, and that somebody keeps the pieces and takes a picture of them, we can send it to the supplier and they'll make a new one.
Okay.
Obviously the cost to install it back on the sign, but the material itself is covered as with their lifetime warranty through Gemini.
Dean?
You know my feelings, pound. For the municipal building, I love it. But as far as the welcome to Bristol sign, not a piece.
Okay.
I like somewhat like the old, put some, little more work living into it from the community.
Kathy?
I don't like how the height of this, not the sign, it's just the sign itself. I would like to see it, even if we went to the same width as what we've got now, but bring it up. I just think that the square-ish sign looks like an industrial sign. Most companies have square signs, you know what I'm saying? It's not special. No,
Not enough character?
there you go.
For me,
Greg?
it's just scale. I mean, I don't mind the sign itself, like the design of it. I love the cabinet. Everything is modular, can be rebuilt. You don't have to replace signs every 10 years.
Right.
I do like that, but it's just the size. I mean, I feel like it's gonna be pretty imposing.
Yeah.
Even though it's not much, I mean, it's just a square of what we have now. It just feels, just seeing the mock-up in back even, like that's,
Seems too large.
to me, it just seems too large. I
Yeah.
mean, it's,
My first impression too is it's larger than I imagined, the visuals showed it that way.
right, because I mean, I saw the visuals, and I'm like, okay, that's not bad, I don't mind it, but I mean, it's just big, and then the logo is just kind of a circle instead of a square. And so it just seems like a lot of blank space, so it just kind of, I don't know.
I agree.
I don't mind it, I like the logo, I like the concept, it's just the size to me is what's getting me right now.
Yeah, it's more industrial than community. That's my opinion.
He's the boss.
Sure.
So, he knows I worked in the sign industry for like a long time, like 8 years.
Oh,
By the way, this is Angela, she's the new JPR person, we'll be working with the Summer Development Center.
Oh, neat.
I'm curious about the letter height of Bristol,
Mhm.
because of the road speed for some of these. I'd be curious how that complies with the manual.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
Is that, go scroll down or scroll up?
so you can see the difference between the
It's not on there, I'll have to
existing,
get that.
the existing letter height
You
of
said this will
Bristol.
have.
That's a really good point.
The new
Actually, if
one.
you scroll down to the, yeah, it's not as big as the current one, that's a good point.
It's up to
Right.
2/3 the size, and so I'm just concerned with the traffic speed in the manual.
Especially on,
We called that for traffic,
Yeah,
right, for the
yeah.
road speed.
That's
Because
why
that's
I'm,
like 55 miles an hour.
Well, that, and you don't have the contrast of the black and the white. You got
Right.
Blue and white, so it may lose its contrast. Well,
I think so, if it's wider, you're going to be able to have Bristol larger. And then
if
shorter.
you go what, you're gonna have, if you want the same, or if you want to add any text to it, it's gonna have to, it needs to keep that almost square or taller rectangle on its side look because of the,
If
because the
you,
logo itself is,
if you go wider, you're gonna have to go taller to keep proportionally.
Unless you move the chartered up and under the wave.
Right,
I don't know what that
or in
would
the,
look like,
or
but
even in a corner,
Yeah.
top corner. We're all sign designers here, did you notice?
like where
because
that
part
line
of it is what content do you want on it? Cause you could get rid of the chart, you could get rid of the chartered in 1835 completely and just have it as simple and clean and read welcome to Bristol, and then you could do what you're asking. And that,
Let me see what the original says.
whatever that distance is from the bottom of the logo to the bottom of the sign could be almost remove most of it.
We still got some thinking to do in this.
You're looking for something to take out the charter.
No, I'm just
All your
thinking,
identity away once you take that out.
what if we change the shape of the top so that it somewhat followed the logo?
We could do
So
that.
if we rounded this more. Where's my,
Started.
why can't I draw?
Look,
We've already
she
got
she drew one.
Oh, there,
That's what she did.
there we go. Yeah.
Over here.
So if we kind of go up like this,
We don't know who you're working for.
and we kind of follow this along somewhere like this.
Like, so do you want to keep the charter on or not? Because if you remove that, it's
Why
certainly,
not keep that corner and put chartered in the corner? Then you could just cut it off.
just a guess, but those with graphic design would say that's probably not a good place to put charter.
Yeah.
Why?
It looks weird.
Balance.
It's
Welcome
unbalanced.
to Charter, 1835 Bristol.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I never thought about the welcome to. Sorry. That's why I'm not a graphic
I mean,
designer.
Conceptually, that's nicely, everything, the logo and the charter is nicely square centered. If you want to make the sign either a different shape, like Angela suggested, or not as high, you remove the charter, then you can pull it up just a little bit.
Yeah. So I guess if we change the shape, how does that impact the cabinet itself? I mean, is it still doable like
It's
that?
still doable, yeah. It's just,
Okay.
you, just have to see cost wise is the main thing. It may, being a custom fabricated shape instead of more rectangular or square, it might cost a little bit more to have it made. But you're also losing a little bit of material there, but if you do what you're doing, you'd also could lose some of the materials. It might, the cost of the fabrication of making it and the material might weigh each other out.
Yeah.
That looks like a big rock. You know,
Pull the red out.
sorry, Jeff, you're not much of this.
Adam, could you, draft a couple different versions before Thursday, and I
Yeah.
can bring those back Thursday,
Yeah.
so I'll get some immediate feedback.
Yeah.
Okay.
Along with the price of the.
I get the, should hopefully be able to get the price for the monuments. It will depend on the company that makes the letters and
Gotcha.
how quickly they can turn the quote around for us, but I should be able to hopefully get that, but I can definitely get you a couple of updated designs for this to look at. Overall size, like you were saying, overall size, is everybody? What are we looking to do with that? Are we gonna keep it within roughly the 72 by 63 cabinet? Is that too big? The smaller one is currently 30 by 71, and the bigger one that's on the four main roads is 40 by 96, I think it is.
Is that the 31 or is that the 40 back there? The one that's mocked up back
Looked
there.
up is exactly what this would look like.
87 by 70.
Okay, so that's the same size as the bigger ones. On the,
We simplified, after the last meeting, we simplified it just to do the smaller of the two, they had two options last time, a larger version of this and a smaller version. We did 8 of the smaller versions for all of them.
Yeah.
If that's what I think that's what you're getting at.
yeah.
So the mock-up up back there is what that face would look like with the out there.
Okay.
Like Andrew was saying, you gotta remember you're driving in a car going down the road, depending on where you're traveling from, anywhere from 30 to 55 miles an hour, if you're following the speed limit.
Bristol, everybody
Of course
does.
they do.
So,
You're not a graphic designer, are you? I'm just saying.
I don't like you anymore, Jim.
Okay.
I try. It's better than a rock.
I didn't say it wasn't.
Oh, don't get us started. Okay. Chime
Okay.
in, Alex, chime in.
So, yeah, let's have you, if you can
yeah,
put
if you're
together.
looking similar content, just a different shape.
Yeah.
Change the shape.
It wouldn't be as long.
Angela can
It'd be more rectangular.
give her.
Square to be the sketch.
If you look here.
Okay.
So we can work with that.
That letter will be
Okay.
small.
Is everything else for
You'd
me?
have to shrink it every time.
I don't think so. I think we're good. Anybody, other questions, thoughts?
You would be able to read the application.
Okay, Adam, thank you, appreciate it. You bet, thank you.
It's industrial, so.
Okay, now we get to work. You've met Angela, you've met Bob before as well. So let's, Angela, they will walk us through the development standards as they are now. This presentation is in the packet there. And,
Well, now that you guys have kind of already met Angela, I really don't have to do an introduction. But, as you know, we've been working on development standards for a couple months now with Mike. We've gotten everything in there. I presented it once, or a rough outline of it, revised it, Ken presented it again. Angela actually started with us 2 weeks ago now. So she has extensive planning knowledge that I do not. She's actually written, St. Joe and City of South Bend, some of them.
City of South Bend, St. Joseph County, Town of Osceola, Town of North Liberty, Town of Lakeville.
So she's got some history with this type of application, and I know her and Alex have talked quite a bit, and I've learned quite a bit in 2 weeks, so she's skimmed down what we had, and she'll tell you kind of what we can and can't do and where we're at, and go from there.
Okay.
Thank you for having us to kind of talk through these things. Luckily I came on and they said, hey, do you want to look at these? And I'm a self-proclaimed zoning geek, so Alex will tell you that's pretty rare. Most people run away from zoning ordinances and I'm like, oh, let's see what I could do. So as you mentioned, so I worked in municipal government for 12 years. So I've been on the enforcement side of this. So I come at it with a slightly different perspective. I told Bob I wouldn't try to design drainage, so I wouldn't expect him to know how to, lay out a zoning ordinance either. So the charter overlay, what I started with was basically what they had already laid out for you. And if you want to scroll down, I'll kind of look at this a little bit. I don't know how the best way to do this. So the framework that we have here in the order we're using follows the Elkhart County framework that they use for each one of their districts. So since this is an overlay that lies within their ordinance, we thought it easiest just kind of follow that framework so that somebody who's used to looking at one of the districts can look at this and kind of find this stuff pretty easily. So those are the topics we're going to cover, and I'll just kind of go over this a little bit more.
Okay.
On the purpose part of it, this isn't your actual purpose language. This is just kind of my thoughts on this. So this allows the town to develop something that's more specific, fits your unique character. It's a supplement and it lives within the Elkhart County development ordinance, but it's specific to you. So you can be more restrictive, you can be less restrictive. It's completely whatever you want to do. And we did a little bit of both throughout this. Zonings is about as much of telling people what they can't do as telling them what they can do, because sometimes the can do gets you a better design than the can't. Also, oops, got cut off there. I've been working with May. They plan on updating their county ordinance on an annual basis. And so I've been in discussion with her. The town would have the opportunity to just kind of make any changes during that process. So you wouldn't necessarily have to live with this forever. This is zoning ordinance should be a living, breathing document that changes as development changes. And as you see things being implemented, you may find something doesn't work, or you may say, that wasn't quite what I wanted, or hey, we need a little bit more. And that can be incorporated each year into this. So there's essentially 4 districts. There's the downtown corridor, or downtown core district, as I have been calling it. And we changed the name slightly so that we weren't conflicting with your comp plan that you had. So that's why they're slightly different things, but they're the same geographic area as before. Then you have the transitional corridor, the South Division corridor, and basically everything else.
Okay.
The development standards within can apply to any one of those districts or all of them, depending on how specific you want to get.
Okay.
One of the things that was outlined when I came on board were some uses that we wanted to look at not incorporating or prohibiting in the town. Unfortunately, this is where Alex would have had to step in and say, sorry, can't do that. Because there's a lot of regulations in state law about how you can limit, so you can't outright prohibit any use. You can make it really difficult for a use to locate in the town with distances and other things, but you can't flat out prohibit it. Agriculture use goes even further. The state offers additional protections that says not only can you not limit them or prohibit them, you also can't make them get a special exception, a variance, a use variance, or anything like that. They're allowed, and if they've already are existing and they operate for 3 out of 5 years, they have to be allowed to continue. So there's even more protections for agricultural use. But what we did is limited it to the M1 and M2 districts. And that's usually, most of the industrial we have in this area is more of the industrial type agriculture. And so like, that's what's really appropriate in most of these areas. We then looked at a couple other things that were mentioned, which was tattoo parlors, and then I called smoke shops, which would cover any of your kind of vape stores you have right now, plus potentially in the future, it would be a good segue if there did pass something on cannabis or something that you could kind of implement pretty easily. And in the chapter I gave you, there's a definition in there. Since these aren't regulated uses in the county, it's important for us to define what that means and how that would apply. So those are only prohibited in the corridors, because again, you can't prohibit them town-wide, but this at least keeps them off the corridors. And so if there's other things that you want us to look at, we can incorporate that as well.
Okay.
So it's one of those things that we can kind of look at as we go. Building form and placement's the kind of heart of the way the site develops. They currently, most of the districts that are along your corridor have about a 55-foot from the center line setback. Two things that we're proposing is one, which is obvious, like in downtown, that should be able to be reduced to 0 because your current buildings are at the kind of the property line, and that's what you want somebody to be able to build. You wouldn't want somebody to have to build back 55 feet from the center line. So this would reduce that setback. So this is where I said sometimes you can be less restrictive. We also looked at that in the transitional corridor, but then to make sure the 0-foot setback says this is as close as you can go, but it doesn't say you have to go that close. So we incorporated a maximum setback. I included it at 10 feet downtown in case you had somebody who wanted to build something and maybe do an outdoor cafe in front, some kind of activation along the street. You don't want to make it completely impossible for them or have to go through variances. So that kind of gives a little bit of flexibility. And in the South Division corridor, what we were looking to do there is we essentially came up with that as a 10-foot parking setback, a double bay of parking with a parking aisle, a 5-foot sidewalk along the building, and still had a little bit of room for the building to be. So the thought is if you move the buildings forward, all of the undesirable stuff that nobody wants to see goes back. So that looks at that, and each one of these have a varying degree of how much of the building has to be within that set. So that's to really get to the kind of more vibrant part of what you want to see. One of the things I was surprised about when I started looking at accessory uses and structures was that there aren't regulations. Well, I could go ahead to the next slide. That say that what it says in the county code is it can't be in your, it has to meet the minimum setback, but it doesn't say it has to be behind the building. This is one of the few ordinances I've worked in where you could put these kind of things in your front yard. I don't think that's the look of what you want along the corridor. So we were proposing that these have to be either in line or behind the building.
Okay.
And that applies to the detached structures. For access and parking, again, what I was gathering is we don't want to see a sea of parking lots, especially along the corridors. Most of the maximum setbacks are going to kind of limit that anyway, but looking to do a couple things here. One that would be less restrictive than the county would be no minimum parking in downtown. This is really common in small town downtowns, especially because you have limited place. And if you want somebody to come in and build a restaurant, for instance, you don't want them to have to either build a parking lot for 50 places or like, have to go for a really crazy variance. So this would eliminate minimum parking downtown. I've worked in the city of South Bend, we got rid of minimum parking altogether. And we haven't had any problems there at all. It's been amazing. We found that people build what they need, which is really a much better way for that to work. We also looked at restricting where it could be, so it has to be in line or behind the building. And then along South Division, allowed a reduced setback to kind of help encourage the buildings to move forward as well. For buffering and screening, the county's pretty vague on most of their ordinances. They have mostly parking area screening and then screening between like intense uses and residential. They don't do anything that addresses kind of like the streetscape kind of thing. So what we were proposing here is require streetscape trees along the corridor where permitted. So like we all know NDOT's throwing a fit about putting them downtown. So, they would obviously overrule this, but where somebody does have room, say they don't build on the entire site, part of this parking lot, you could get a tree in there or something along those lines. And again, I was surprised that there's no minimum planting standards in the county. So I literally could go buy something at Lowe's that's like a foot tall and stick it out there, and that would qualify as their landscape regulations. So in the standards, you'll see what's commonly accepted pretty much across the industry is some minimum planting sizes. That just makes sure when a business comes in, they don't put in little twigs that die off right away. And then the change in the parking area buffer that we were recommending is the current code requires a 4-foot high parking buffer. We think that's a little bit tall for safety purposes. And so typically for like site distance and stuff, you want to keep everything clear between 3 foot and 10 foot. So we're recommending that it be maintained at 3 foot. And again, continuing on this, again, I was really surprised that there's not really fence regulations very much in the county. You guys are very blessed that you haven't had anybody kind of outside of the chain link fences along the front. You haven't had somebody build a privacy fence all the way around the front yard yet, which I've seen done, and it looks like that picture on the right. It's not really the image of a corridor that you want to give. It's not very welcoming. So we're looking at a few things. One would be to limit the maximum fence height between the building and the street to 4 foot. So in your front yard, you could be 4 foot. This serves a couple of purposes. It allows you to see over the fence to make sure there's not unsightly activity going on behind that that's illegal or whatever, but also as a better appearance. And then we're proposing along the corridor that you not be allowed to have any security wire or barbed wire on the top of the fence if it's in the front yard. So if your storage moves back, your security wire moves back too. This is an area where I didn't push the limits as far as I could, but you could, one of the things that we talked about kind of today is you could put no chain link in the front yard if you wanted. So you can do that, or you could say any chain link has to be black powder coated or whatever. There's lots of ways that you can do this. Fences, parking, and signs are probably the 3 biggest culprits to how the corridor is going to look. That's what you're looking for.
If you go south on Division Street, you'd see that.
Yes. Yeah. And so the hope is that over time, as they go to replace those fences, they'll have to be brought into conformance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And really, they're not doing anything there that's so unique that someone's gonna like, I don't know, do you guys have problems with people stealing box trucks from the front of these things? Maybe.
Not on his shift.
Okay. We can go to the next slide, if you will. Along with that too, in the buffering and screening section of the county ordinance where they deal with the outside storage. So this says no outdoor storage in the front yard, and the county defines that as anything between the building and the street. So where your building is determines your front yard. So this really puts it either in line with the building or behind the building. If you have it, it has to, we put in there a solid wall enclosure instead of, I don't think there's actually any screening requirements in the county unless you're up against residential. And then we incorporated dark sky friendly lighting, or pretty much compliant dark sky compliant lighting, which again is pretty standard. Sorry, now we'll talk signs. Again, very vague in the county. They don't incorporate, like for instance, they don't have a prohibited sign section. So there's nothing that says you can't do the wavy flyy guy there or have big balloons or anything like that. I put this in here as kind of a placeholder, but also kind of a suggestion. These are the most common problematic signs that are regulated. 1, because they distract drivers. 2, because a strong wind tends to blow them over and they go flying down the street. And 3, they're just not as attractive as a permanent sign. I know your current sign ordinance that the town has adopted separate from the county requires them to get permits from the clerk's office. I don't know how good people are about doing that here in town. But that's something that we can kind of look at that. A couple others.
They don't necessarily get permits, but we are notified and we have to give approval to a design.
Like those flag ones.
Right.
County,
So you have to give an ILP approval for the flag banners.
not the flag banners, no, just for signs that are on building or monument type signs, that's all. There's
Your
all
current-
these other things, nobody does anything.
Your current ordinance requires them to get a permit from the clerk.
For a
Yeah.
flag sign?
Yes, all
Okay.
temporary signs require a permit from the clerk. Just saying, that's in there now. I didn't already have it.
Nobody does that. And by the way, I
Well-
apologize for the formatting. I didn't know that our software converted PowerPoint into a PDF.
Oh, I could send it to you as a PDF.
Yeah,
That's
well,
I'll send it as a PDF.
this is the first time we've done this with this. Yeah, so I apologize.
That's okay.
I didn't look at it.
I'll send you guys the PDF to look at too.
Okay.
There's a few other things we incorporated in there. Some are more, kind of bold than others. We left that kind of a tier. Your current ordinance that you've adopted is 120 square foot at 12 feet in height anywhere in the town. This kind of gives like 3 tiers. This would be, we would propose that if somebody wanted to put a free, ground sign downtown, that it come to you for approval. Because you're supposed to be keeping your downtown pedestrian friendly. You don't want somebody to put something out there that's gonna be a big monument or block visibility or anything like that. So it would be a special exception to get a freestanding sign. Now, if you permit your town ones before we get there, they're grandfathered and you don't have to worry about it. Or you grant yourself a special exception, either way. The other ones, then look at the corridors and they kind of graduate up. So the transitional corridor, 32 square foot, 6 foot in height, 64 along South Division, and then everything else follows your current sign ordinance. I was surprised to find there's no limit on the number. So we're proposing 1 per curb cut, which should be sufficient for most businesses for a freestanding sign. They don't really need to have 3 100 square foot signs in the front of their business, but there's, again, no one's done it yet. But as you get new residents that move in, new landowners, they're not gonna have necessarily that same sense of character, and they may try to push the limits. So this is kind of getting ahead of that. The wall signs also are currently unlimited. I don't know what you guys think about that. I'm open to discussion. I've been looking around at your wall signs. Outside of the corridors, you won't have any problems. I don't think you'll have any problems as I was looking downtown at your current wall signs, they all fit within the standard. But it's just to kind of give some guidance so somebody doesn't, paint a huge 120 square foot sign in the whole front of their facade or whatever downtown.
Yeah.
One other thing I'd like to consider is prohibiting the use of banners as a permanent sign.
Yeah.
Because that's something that as that technology has come cheaper, somebody can order them on Vistaprints and they send them to them. And they put them up on the side of the building. That's not an attractive look for anywhere in town either. So that's something I was just thinking about on the way here. And then this is kind of the image of what we would put all that together and put it in an image on the South Division corridor. This is what it would look like. 10-foot parking strip, double loaded bay of parking, building towards the street, and like all of the other activities behind. So this is just kind of an overview of the image that can be created. Again, the challenge with zoning ordinances and overlays is it only applies to new development. All of your existing development is going to be grandfathered in by state law. Over time, you can get to this, but it's a good place to start.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that was kind of the goal that you're looking for. That's a full image, I guess. So again, we're just looking at the characteristics based on the standards of what we've seen around the town. We're starting on the corridors. Again, as you review this yearly, you can expand these to other areas. Some of these we have written to kind of apply to the whole area, like not petting the sheds in the front yard, because I don't think you have any other problem right now, but it's just a good practice. And again, just a reminder that this will only apply to new development. I can work with the town to help talk about some ideas on how you can encourage existing development
That would
to
be
do these
great.
things, but in terms of zoning compliance, it's just new development. So, Alex, did I miss anything, or am I?
No, I think that's a great and succinct overview of a very complicated topic.
Yeah.
And I'd commend you and Bob on the amount of work that's gone into getting it to this point, knowing how it's distilled down from some of the input from council, the input with Mike, and the statutory schemes that overlay it.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
We're gonna hold off on paying Alex to review it until after you guys give me feedback, so he hasn't dove into it too much, but I figured I'd save you a little money and wait until we got some feedback from you.
He's already put hours.
We'll have Mike do our first legal review.
Yeah.
Then he'll toss it over the fence to Alex.
I'm one of
Well,
those,
have you left it?
I'm not an attorney, but I play one on TV.
Yeah, that sounds like me.
Doesn't
Angela?
some of this stuff have to do with, you know, well, I don't know if you've seen it, but that old, ordinance that went by the wayside years ago that I sent out, the commercial ordinance. Some of this pertains to
Yeah,
what was in that.
yeah,
That's
and
what's
it's-
nice about it.
Yeah, and that's what Angela's focused on, which is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, and if you have, like, as far as I know, sign ordinance is the only thing that was snuck out there that I didn't know about before I started this, but if there are other town ordinances that relate to commercial development or anything like that, that you wanna make sure we incorporate, we wanna make sure we have it here, because this is really giving the teeth to the county.
Yeah.
I would love to say that they would let everything come to the town for review, but I've already had a conversation with May and she wasn't having it. So, the more we can incorporate what you want to see or not see in this, the better. And so one of the exercises over the next couple weeks, if you're driving around and you see something, you're like, oh, I really like this, or I really hate that, just shoot me the address and I can figure out how to incorporate that into the standards and stuff. So I'd like you to take a couple weeks to kind of sit on this and think about this. The general plan would be, once we receive feedback from you, we'd like to hold a downtown specific meeting with the property owners to give them kind of a look at stuff, because the corridor's the most targeted. And then just a general open house before we file it with the council. So it'll go to, or the planning commission, so it'll go to the planning commission. You guys will have to, then I'll go to the commissioners, and then you guys will have to re-adopt it. So that's the general process.
I know that old commercial had hit some of, that's why I like this, because it had hit the things like setbacks from the road. It hit things about, well, you know, not putting your dumpster in the front of a poor company. It hit some of those things, which is incorporated in this, which is great. It also had to do with, I don't know, the trees, you know, whatever. So this is kind of a culmination of everything.
There was a plan up in Mike's office that I took some pictures of. Was that part of what she's talking about?
No,
There's something up on-
this was an old ordinance.
No, I think it's an old, yeah.
Yeah.
If you happen to know where that is, we find it or
I have
whatever.
a copy at home. I don't throw anything out.
Yeah, I.
Mike's got a copy.
And I'll make sure this one's incorporated in there.
Well, I mean, we're talking really old, but there may be something that we're missing.
I mean, you're.
That we had in that.
So some of the old stuff is what you really want. What we found with most of the ordinances that we found is a lot of times in like the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, they came through and they wrote these big updates, which were very suburban in nature and designed to kind of get things away from the downtown character of a lot of the small towns. And so it's like taking it back to the way things used to be and right sizing it for the community. So,
This was just for, you know,
right. it should be just
industrial
for-
areas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is the most problematic, right? Yeah.
So here's one I'll give you a recommendation to take a look at. This is County Road 26 and County Road 7. For reference, this is the Elkhart County Sheriff's Department and Jail.
Okay.
And this is the Elkhart County landfill. At this corner, in the northwest corner, as you can see, that is an RV driveway lot. Okay, what I like about this one is, I'm gonna take you to street view. I'm gonna plumb you right in front of this place. The berm.
Yeah.
When you're right here, you don't see it. To see it, you have to come to the entrance. I would like to see something like this, that if there's a storage lot like this located somewhere within our boundaries, that this berm is defined as not visible from the road.
I think we can do that in kind of the outer portion, but the
Yeah.
actual corridors,
Yeah.
it'll be tough, but yeah,
Yeah,
I think we can work
and
that into the plan.
We
Yeah,
can do
that's-
this a couple ways. I see one, we can put a provision in there that if there is no building, that this should be what's done. So right now, we're saying it has to be behind the building.
Yeah.
And screened. but you could have a scenario like this, where I don't know that you can call that guard shack the building, because that's not really what it is.
Right.
So there, we can put something in there that kind of incorporates that.
Yeah, and Bob, you're right, because this is something you wouldn't see. That.
Yeah,
You wouldn't see this in a corridor.
right, and we were thinking,
I mean,
outside and like, Earthway and all that kind of stuff, the future development plan, like,
Yeah.
what do you do? Because that is gonna be at the industrial standard.
Okay, so Angela and I had this conversation. I like Angela after she told me, yes, she agrees with me on this. When the county first developed its new zoning ordinance, the intent was to do away with PUDs, just go straight rezoning.
Yeah.
Angela thinks that's a beautiful idea. So do I.
I actually wrote an ordinance in South Bend that also almost makes it impossible to get a PUD.
Well, okay, well, that's great. So, the corridors are important, but it's also important for us to make sure that our M1s and M2s are requiring the buffers that we want, so we can use
Right.
great rezonings.
Yeah.
And you and I talked a little bit about that, and I think the counties are a little too loose. Did we talk about mandating a certain buffer? Something like that,
Yeah, so,
and that's what Jeff's getting at. with
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that, Jeff.
yeah, we can
Well, I like
definitely,
it with trees and mowed
Oh, that'd
grass.
be
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah,
yeah,
we can certainly do that in the properties zoned M1 and M2 in the town limits. So that town limits is anything not on the corridor, and we can do a zoning specific one and
Okay.
create some buffering. So obviously streetscape trees, you don't wanna create huge walls along the street, but there's ways to regulate, it. Like can do a berm that has to be like maximum 6 foot tall or whatever to kind of help by that. You could also set, minimum setbacks for the storage of stuff like that. So you could say that it has to be a minimum of 100 foot off the road, which then sets it back so that your line of sight doesn't see it as well. So
Okay,
there's definitely things we can incorporate in there.
okay. Yeah, that would be good.
And then as you think of other things, just let me know.
Okay.
Zoning can be fun.
Wasn't there some
Really?
controversial question or something you wanted, oh, let's go back to the flag
The
thing.
flag banner.
That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah. So as I drove through, you definitely have some businesses, like Mancino's, I know has one, there was some other railroad tracks, I got stuck with the train that
Liquor
went
store.
forward and backward as I was coming over here. These can be somewhat questionable. You may have businesses that are like, no, I really want these, because again, they've become easy and cheap to order online.
Yeah.
I still don't think it's the looking one on the corridors, but I
That would be great.
will defer to you. As someone who worked in the sign industry for 8 years, I'm a little bit anti-sign, sorry. In some cases.
Straighter.
I know, right? I came back from the dark side, no, so.
She got out of now. That's 20 years, I can get out of it.
Just a question for Alex or you, what part of this should be within the county ordinance? What part of our town ordinance can we remove sign stuff from, but what do we wanna keep? Do temporary signs stay in the town's code,
Yes,
or does everything go to the county?
I would propose you actually do away, that this would replace your current sign standards, because nobody knows about your current sign standards, as witnessed by some recent activity that you told me about.
Well, and I mean, yes, I think that's right, but it does raise the question procedurally to your note on, like signs in the downtown corridor going through a special exemption process.
That would come with to the town.
How do we, and I guess the question would be, how do we structure that? How do we tell the county? Because if it can be in there, we can find a way to have that as part of the overlay, temporary signs, permanent signs, certain ones that we want the town to be able to weigh in on. Do we bake that into the overlay?
So what I proposed with the downtown freestanding signs coming in through as a special exception, that's 100% in the county ordinance. That's something that legally we can put in there. I don't think they will have a problem with. They'll send them through the Board of Zoning Appeals and ultimately, oh no, that stays in the Board of Zoning Appeals, not very right. Let me think about that.
It could be the permit process. I mean, it could be could be retaining some aspect.
Yeah,
of
we
permit.
definitely can retain permitting for temporary signs. A lot of communities do that on their own. It helps you regulate time constraints that the county doesn't have. And I haven't had a chance to have a conversation with Meg, as she was out for conferences last week, about enforcement and how they manage that.
Our enforcement would be quicker. So
Right.
permanent, what I'm hearing you say is permanent signs would be within the county ordinance. Temporary signs could be held within the town.
Yeah, and most of your, what you have in your current ordinance, the 120 square foot at 12 feet in height, is baked into this ordinance now. So that was the key factor. Again, totally shocked that the county doesn't even use the word off premise anywhere in their ordinance. That's the common term or the legal term for billboards. It's not even in their ordinance at all. Totally shocked me. But by limiting the size, you limit that. So 120 square foot compared to a 300 square foot billboard. So, what I have in here is that retains the 120 for everything outside the corridors. But in a more forward position where someone's gonna see it in the county ordinance and not challenge you and send you through legal action as a town.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the signs and you know, you've got the blow up and the squirrely guy and all of that stuff. What's the definite difference between a blow up and a sign? And for example, Christmas decorations
So that's where
or
you,
giant skeleton.
right. So that's where a lot of communities will exempt holiday decorations. And that's something we can put in there.
Yes.
Yeah, so we can put in there that holiday decorations are exempt. There's actually a pretty extensive list of prohibited and extent in most ordinances
Okay.
that don't exist here. The tricky one are flags. So the US Supreme Court, in all of their geniusness, has limited that we cannot control content of a sign. It's protected as a First Amendment right. So if you put in your ordinance that flags are exempt, you've automatically made your sign ordinance illegal. So some communities that I've worked in have gone to size limitations. So like you can have no more than 4 flags on your property, no more than 64 square foot each or whatever. That's very controversial. I've just kind of stayed silent on flags and specifically got to flag banners, which are advertising. So it's some of the things I don't like putting in ordinances because I don't want to kind of rock the boat. But the holiday decorations is a gimme that's in almost every ordinance.
Well, and when you're talking about flags too, I mean, the American flag, as you can see, a lot of people in Bristol fly them. So you have to really have a definite definition between, you know, a flag, and a business. And I don't know how you do that.
It's a tough question because I think Supreme Court has said that a municipal zoning ordinance, has to be content neutral. And so even when you get into that, there's some real minutia when you start getting into the difference of whether you're talking about commercial speech, which you can regulate to an extent, and non-commercial speech, which is First Amendment protected as a matter of, it's just a matter of fact. So, but then facially, when you look at your ordinance, if it starts making that distinction, you'll find somebody enterprising who wants to come make an example of you. And there are, as a firm, we've seen that, we've litigated those issues before. They can be dicey, they can be incredibly lengthy, because it's a constitutional challenge. It's not just an administrative issue. So yes, you're putting your finger on an issue that is not fully resolved in any one way. And it's something we have to pay particular attention to.
Well, I would take pages and pages and pages of description of what's not allowed and what is allowed and why and all of that. Then you get into all sorts of things.
Again, so what they say is you can regulate time, place, and manner. And so that includes like size limits, how long they can be up. In this case, I specifically used the word flag banner because that's a recognized sign type that, like, if you Googled flag banner, that's gonna come up. And so it kind of like if somebody put a flag banner up that looked like that, and instead of now seeing it was an American flag, they would still have to take it down, unfortunately. When you use that kind of terminology, but most people aren't doing that. Most people are flying a real American flag if they want to.
Well, it's ironic you said that because I thought about that when I came into town this
The
evening,
banners.
the Mancinos.
Yeah.
Because for a long time, I mean, they were open for a year and they still had now open.
Yeah.
Sign up in front, and they've been open for a year. So, and I don't mind it, I'm glad they're here, don't get me wrong. But, you know, that's one example, and I gave Mike a couple examples. MJB had, and they've taken it down. Did you talk to him about that? There was a sign down there from the construction company that was still standing 3 years after or 2 years after the building was done. And it said overhead power lines. You know, so there's a construction sign that should have come down. And then the Handy Spot liquor store, Mid-States had their sign up. Was it Mid-States? Yeah, Mid-States had their construction sign out there a month and
Quite a while.
quite a while after the building opened up. So those are the kind of things that, let's get rid of those.
So again, I think, and Alex, I'd be curious if you looked at it, that I think what we came up with in the city of South Bend is pretty content neutral. So there are things, for instance, that say, so like you can say something like on a site where there's an active building permit, you may have a sign of this size.
Yeah.
And then it has to be removed within 10 days of certificate of occupancy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we
Yeah.
had in the South Bend ordinance. We had in there things like for a property for sale or lease, you may have this. And then like Indiana's, so there's also one of those gray areas, right? You can't regulate content, but Indiana has a whole separate things for political signs that says during this time and this time, you can't regulate them. Like, I can't remember, I think it's 30 days, 45 days before the election and 30 days after, you can't regulate them. So essentially during that time, your temporary sign ordinance is pretty much upside down. Unique things. to state.
Well, election laws are pretty precise in that you have to take signs down within 48 hours of an election.
I thought it was that sounds right.
Yeah, differing obligations on the candidates committee that have
Right.
certain obligation
Right.
to hold,
Right.
and then looking at the sign ordinance aspect of it.
Then the-
where
then a
property
resident.
owner who's hosting it.
Yes, yeah.
So I'm happy to share the more extensive one that we've developed, which sounds like something that would be great here. And for you to look at and see what you think.
Okay.
When it comes to signage, you can't be too vague, in my opinion. The more specific you can
I
be
agree.
and the more direct you can be, the better, because you don't want to leave things up to question. And so if you're not afraid of incorporating some of those things, we have a really well-developed list of temporary sign regulations that I can propose.
Okay. Yeah, I would be in favor of that.
Okay, I can share that with you.
Oh, sorry. What's the limit you said EMC? What is that?
So on the corridors, I would propose that the electronic message center signs not be on the corridors. I know you guys have one.
They're the street lights.
That doesn't count for that.
Message.
So it has, there's things to that too. There's ways that you can also regulate like how often they change, that they not be the full motion picture kind of thing. Like where there's like a video of a car racing down the street for the car wash, stuff like that. There are things that on the corridors themselves, when they're not used properly, can be really distracting. And so a couple things, you could require them to be a special exception, which is what some places do, and then gives you an opportunity when it goes in front of the BZA to kind of voice your opinion. That really depends on how good of a relationship you have with the BZA. Or you can find regulations that regulate. So one of the things I like is a sign is supposed to direct you to what the business is. It's not supposed to advertise everything that's happening inside the business. So there's a lot of places that'll regulate the electronic message center portion can't be more than 40% of the sign that says like that way your main part of the sign is identifying your business. You're not having your advertising specials running like 24 hours. But, or how far it has to be from residential. There's all kinds of things we can do with that. But it hasn't been an issue for you guys yet, but something to keep in mind.
Well, we did kind of dodge that bullet because one of the sign companies wanted to turn this billboard in the park to a digital.
So I am proposing that we tighten the non-conforming section, especially for your signs. Because it is pretty generous. So even the rebranding that Lamar did would not have been permitted in the city of South Bend. They're going through a big legal battle right now because they physically take the cabinet down and then they put it back up. In Elkhart County, you're allowed to replace light for light, even if you take the cabinet down, and your current sign ordinance allows that as well. But that's not really what you want. Once you take that cabinet down, it's really a sign that the life expectancy of the signs come to an end, and we should be putting up something that's compliant. And so I would propose we tighten up the non-conforming section for both your signs and your fences, because those are gonna be your biggest things that you'll be able to change impact on the quickest. Someone's not gonna tear down a building, but if they replace a fence, they should have to replace it code compliant, not
Right.
like it is now. Cringing on that one.
We need to talk then, because that kind of brings into play. When you say take the cabinet down, that's taking the sign down and putting up a new one, right?
That's what the debate is going on right now. So following the legal aspect of this one, I did reach out to the city attorney to see like how they've resolved that. Jenna's been working on it. Because we had a big debate between whether or not it was a sign cabinet or a sign face. It's really a stupid thing. It's
a sign.
Because
sign industry is very
you need to
litigious.
take
Yeah.
that down and put up a new one.
Everything has to be
That's
so
the one.
specific anymore.
No,
The Lamar one?
the one right here in town.
They already took it down and put it in.
Yeah, a couple years ago.
Yeah, but your current sign ordinance allows for that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, your current sign ordinance allows for, and I looked at it and I got really excited and then I read it again and I was like, dang it, no. It allows for you to take down a cabinet and put a new one up.
Okay.
As long as you don't increase the size. So unfortunately,
Change to electric.
Yeah.
that I would consider a change of type. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
that's kind of a little bit different.
Yeah.
But again, if you put limitations, especially on the corridor, right, up to
Yeah.
the staffs, there aren't even any regulations for off-premise signs, district-wise for separation. Most communities will have, you have to be so far from you have to be so far from the school, you have to be so far from this, there's things that you can do. Again, you can't prohibit them, you can make it really hard for them to put them up. So if you have to set a sign back 50 feet from the property line for an off-premise sign, and they want to try to put them in your downtown, there's not many places they want to put them. So they don't want to put them 50 or 100 foot back on the right of way. So
Can't put a restriction that says you can't have a sign within 1.5 miles of a school or something like that, that,
you can.
well, I think that would completely exclude the entire, that's.
No, you have to keep like
Yeah.
a spot. Like when you draw all the circles, there has to be like a spot where they can go. But then somebody else. Yeah.
So we should make it, you can't have a sign that is, the sign has to be a minimum of 1.5 miles from any individual, any person,
Ooh, that's a good one.
There's a lot of
either residing or traversing.
There's a lot to say there have to be spacing between them too.
Or a road.
Yeah, but again, I think the digital part is something important to kind of.
Yes.
Yeah,
Very much.
that's not gonna happen. We're doing that. Okay,
So do we have a couple minutes to talk RFP real quick?
Jeff? and-
yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, been working and talking to Mike about the property here and on the riverfront and this exciting opportunity here. So it's 0.4 acres. I'm sure you guys know this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Zone B2 and B3. That allows a pretty wide range of uses in there that you probably don't want, but we can look at that. And then what I have here is some general guidelines to what I think you're looking for, and this is where I'm looking for some feedback. And then after that are some inspirational images that you guys can give me feedback on too. So R4 district exists in the county. It's a mixed use district that would allow for you to have a commercial use on the ground floor, residential above, which is kind of where I thought we were going. We looked at 2 stories with the 30-foot maximum height. The bar height is 30, the height of the bar is 30 feet. We did go out and measure. Bob counted bricks.
Or hope I counted right.
And then what I did here is essentially incorporated everything that we put in the overlay and then took it to the next step further, which is kind of setting up a framework, maybe if you wanted to go more downtown. So this includes requirements for windows on the ground floor, that you have to have, some of that, and actually on the second floor and what I'm developing. parking behind there, encourages it to be on the street and kind of incorporate some of that traditional, architecture. So then I went through and Googled a whole bunch of images to kind of, share with you guys, so you can kind of see if these fit what you like, what you don't like. The one on the left, one of the things that I would encourage, that you encourage them to use a recessed entry. That's used on almost all of your businesses downtown right now. And so that's an element that you could request that they incorporate into the design. The picture on the right kind of shows you some traditional, architecture with some awning coverage. We have some that are, the next two slides, incorporate more of a residential feel a little bit, but so it's not quite as stark, and all brick, but you can kind of see how you might be able to incorporate some other, things that kind of fit in with what you already got downtown, because you don't have a ton of two-story brick. This is a little bit more modern, a little bit more out there. So the one on the left has some design elements that you can kind of incorporate in there, but just to kind of get you thinking of what might happen, and you guys can let me know what you like and don't like. And then, let's see, this one on the lower left, I heard 2 stories was what you guys wanted to keep that at. This is introducing something that you may want to consider, a limited amount of a 3rd story where somebody might be able to get a really good like rooftop feature that overlooks the river, but isn't real obvious from the street. So it's something that would be closer to the river, not real obvious from the street, but a really great design element. I would also encourage, whatever you do here to, you can require or encourage, I say encourage because you want flexibility, but then to use the lower level to take advantage of the riverfront too. So there's lots of things we can incorporate into this. And then this last one's just kind of a more modern, but the facade broken up a little bit. So I wanted to get these in here. That one uses a projecting sign, for instance, and the canopy incorporates the building.
This one right here.
Up there, yeah.
Yeah.
So just some images to think about, when you think about what you might want to see there. To have you guys give me some feedback. We can write this as specific or as vague as what we want. We do think that it's going to be important for, you to be pretty far along in the riverfront development and what you're gonna do with the river walk, which is probably we'd encourage it to be separate from this RFP and be separate things. But so that you know how much land you need to retain and how much you can sell as part of this process. Because you might find that you need, when you start designing that, you might find that you need the rear 15 feet. You can do that either by getting far enough in the design that we keep that in your ownership, or incorporating a easement along the back portion.
Yeah.
We think will be wide enough to cover that when you get to that. And then once the RFPs go out, we have some ideas of who we can share those with to help generate some ideas and get them back to the town.
That'd be great.
So just wanted to start the conversation and thinking about what you guys would like to see and what you want to make sure we prohibit.
Okay.
What is the distance between the sidewalk and where that land drops off? You know, when it goes.
It doesn't go, it goes.
Yeah, quickly it does. But what's the distance between, because
Oh, I don't know.
that's gonna have a
Oh, that's
hindrance
huge.
on backyard parking.
Well, I don't think you're gonna end up with backyard parking.
No,
Didn't we just talk about that though?
So in
Or
line or
what
behind the
businesses?
building, so like,
not for.
Or no
In this-
parking.
Oh,
This is
okay.
just for the,
in this case, I
Yeah,
kind of
just-
envision like, here's a building and your parking lot might start back here.
Or there may be no parking.
There may be no parking.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
not gonna require.
You're not gonna require it. I suspect whoever proposes will want some parking. And we've talked about things, Ken and I were talking about this today, because there's gonna be things like, for instance, if you want a restaurant, they're gonna need to be able to load the food and unload the food. You don't want them to park the truck in the middle of the street to unload the food product.
That's
I understand
Do
that's the
that.
curb cut that's in that.
Hey, everybody does that.
And so one of the things we talked
We
about
looked at that
in
today.
the plans, and I don't know if we have the most recent, and I need to get with DLC to get them. Right now, they propose keeping that residential curb cut, I think.
Yes.
And the older plans we have, in the RFP, we would put that the developer would have to coordinate with NDOT. Because I don't think that the town wants that to be a
No.
location
No.
either.
No.
And so, like, that's something that we can put in the RFP, and unfortunately, it'd be a developer expense. to
That was
replace.
the other question we had was When is that construction starting?
Spring.
Next week, we thought.
But really soon.
The six.
So,
But we are also, we'll be working with Reeve Riley late fall, early winter on how they'll be doing the entire sidewalk from curb to building.
yeah,
Although half of that's our cost, so we'll be looking at how we design that. That'll be incorporated from the bridge all the way through this area.
Reese Riley got that contract?
You're the end
we'll
of
just
one.
wanna make
Yeah.
sure that some of that coordination stuff is language in that
Oh, that's
RFP,
Yeah, Chad didn't sign this.
so that we can figure that out, what
That's
they
right,
wanna
that's
do and get it figured out soon, so
Yeah,
that.
that
I
was
figure that we can
second
take it back
Even though.
If we figure it out.
Well, it's because Chad didn't sign it.
Yes.
He didn't sign the bond.
I'm curious what like there's space behind the bar that's not owned by the bar. I'm curious if there's easements there. We don't need to work on that stuff.
Oh, don't get us started.
Sorry. I won't open that can of worms. I'll talk to you. I'll plan.
Oh, that was a can of worms, that's Pandora's box.
Yeah, and
Oh, yeah.
only talk to Alex about it, it's not on my bill.
Actually, it was a dark hole.
Okay.
We're attempting to get that title clear, put it up.
Cause it's
Oh.
AEP, right? Or something?
Oh,
We got an idea.
We have an idea. If
I
Quiet title?
Well, if it.
only
Yeah,
it's that
hopefully.
simple.
Hopefully not.
So,
Hopefully cool heads prevail.
So I think, just for your brain to think about, I think if we talk the owners of the Red, they would see the value of a Riverwalk concept from the town's parking lot behind the Redbird, behind this new facility that will connect to some sort of a pedestrian bridge across the river to the park. Okay? I think everybody's in agreement to that corridor. I'm pretty sure the Collins would go for that. So we can look at that as a concept to
Yeah.
include in the, right, in the
in the RFP,
RFP.
Yeah.
yeah,
So it'll be leading up to the bridge path,
Yeah.
yeah,
the new bridge that
And
they're
then
gonna
that
build.
connects the town's parking lot with Redbird and with the new facility.
yeah. 'Cause I
Okay.
think if we structure this properly, the RFP could be, for lack of a better term, the catalyst for
Yes,
the Riverwalk.
yes.
So you want the
It's
RFP to give guidelines, but not be so restrictive that
Mm.
it limits the creativity that somebody comes up with.
Right.
Yes.
And then we can
yeah.
continue to work with the town on making sure that, you know, the concepts that come in are getting to what you want and figuring out how to make sure that they shape that way,
Yeah.
so.
And I mean, council chime in here, but I would like to see the RFP even mention something about, dockside parking in the river. So that you could boat up and you would have piers or dockside, whatever it is, that you could bring your boat up, your pontoon, your wave runner, whatever, tie off, go upstairs, walk up a set of stairs, go into the restaurant from the backside, and have a meal.
Yeah, so the good thing is like what we're proposing, the riverfront still in the town's kind of control, so the docks you can create your own, you can make them pay for it if you want. We were incorporating in there that a connection to the Riverwalk will have to be coordinated with the town and will be required.
Yeah,
And
okay.
DNR.
Yeah, I mean, all that kind of stuff, but I
This is all
do
zoning and everything.
envision, I think you're gonna wanna work with somebody who's probably done a bank side development before, cause there's some really great buildings that you can build into the side of the bank.
Yeah.
Come out well, so.
Yeah, cause I envision, so like, if we take this building right here,
It
let's
goes down to the bottom.
Yep, so it's 2-story from the river, from the roadside, from the riverside, it's a 3-story.
Yeah.
You have a walkout basement, you have a patio back there, cause there's nothing on the upper St. Joe River that you can take your boat up to, tie off and go into a restaurant. Can you do that up at Jim Walker's? Yeah, I've done it personally. We've ridden our wave runners up there and you have to find a rock to tie off,
Yeah.
but there's no place to really walk up. You kind of have to find a path to go up.
Fine, but.
Yeah, you climb up the hill to go to the rest, which we do about every summer, but it'd be nice to be able to, and I envision something like over on Lake Wawasee, whether you go to the
Channel marker.
the channel marker or Oakwood,
Wood, frog.
yeah, the frog, yeah.
Yep.
You pull up and, I mean, at the channel marker, they'll park your boat for you.
But the frog, you have to climb over boats.
You do.
You have to climb over boats
Yeah.
to get to the
Yeah.
bottom.
That's it, that's the difference
I've
too
heard.
between a lake and a river.
Yeah.
Cause then you're dealing with a DNR.
So, no, I like the idea and I like the number of images that you've given because it goes from a more traditional,
Something that coordinates.
kind of like the one on the right here,
Like that,
to a more contemporary to the one right here.
yeah.
And the good thing is that while you control the land, you have full say in the development agreement. how it's-
Right.
So there's a lot of control for the town.
Okay.
Yeah,
You know, and again, I had in there a 10-foot setback, because you could have a scenario where somebody might wanna set it back a little bit on the corner and have an outdoor patio or something like
Yeah.
that. So.
yeah. And I like, which one was it?
What do you guys think about that rooftop one right there?
Yeah, so I'd love to see a rooftop dining too.
Would you be okay with a small enclosure on the rooftop too, which would technically make it 3 stories?
I wouldn't have a problem with it.
I think you could limit how many square feet are enclosed up there.
Yeah.
You'd have to.
Yeah.
Stairwell, elevator, all that to get up there.
Yeah. I don't know if you're done for
Birmingham used to have
Delaware County, but I can look, but
I mean,
But you'd have to have it.
isn't there a size-wise determination as to whether it is a story
Yeah.
or not?
There's
Compared to the other stories?
They moved it to the new building.
Okay.
In the Alfred specific code, but typically it has to do more with if it's finished space and a ceiling.
Okay, so
that's
I
typically, like in building code, it looks like if it's a finished space that's, has a 7-foot ceiling, they usually consider it a story.
even if it's 4 by 4,
Yeah.
that's a third
And
story.
in some instances, yeah, but a lot of places also exempt like elevator shafts, stairwells. Then you get into, again, this is where I say zoning's a nightmare, then you get into people arguing about, like, what about the lobby out front of the stairwell and stuff like that, so,
Yeah.
again, we can guide that through the RFP and the selection process.
Okay.
The easiest way is to say like, the 4th story is limited to like the back of the feature.
Yeah.
And then it's not right up on the street.
Right,
That'd be ideal because you'd be looking right at the river.
yeah,
It'd be a very popular spot.
oh, yeah, agreed. Yeah.
The cost of rooftop features though are also very expensive.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So Mike knows how to get a hold of me, send me any ideas, thoughts, and otherwise, and we'll try to, let us know what time frame you want for the RFP, and we'll try to get that moving along.
Tomorrow's fine. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the end of your reports?
That seems to be enough. It was an hour and a half or so, but a
Okay,
lot of good work. huh?
yeah, a lot of good information. All right, Kathy, anything tonight?
I just have a note for you. Usually we try and get the docket out to you by Friday or Monday. We had some software issues that were resolved today.
Okay,
So those will be going out to you tomorrow.
okay, thank you.
Sorry for the shortness.
That's good. Alex, anything tonight?
We just closed on the Condon donation for the park here at the corner. So that is now in the town's inventory.
I signed those last night.
That, so that's box 1 checked. We've got the Robert Wheat deal that we've just gotten the title work back on that, and fortunately, I don't see anything glaring on title that I would advise the town against proceeding with the acquisition of that, so.
Did you say there was a lien against that?
There are some judgment liens, with regards to Robert Weed that, our position with those would be that they should be satisfied at closing or otherwise discharged. But in any event, they need to go away before the town takes title. But they are less than the purchase price, and so there are ways for that to be managed at closing.
They take your money and pay the lien.
If they're minimal, they sometimes folks balk at that, but it's judgment lien. That can be addressed at closing. So, so otherwise, yeah, I think the only easement on the property is that of the towns, and, so I don't think we need to do anything to address that.
On the, in that vein, we did get 3 quotes on remodeling the building.
Yeah.
$51,511, $51,500, and $39,800. So we'll go with 39. We've actually used him before in this building. He's done some work for us before. He's done some work for me, so it's a good quality quote.
Okay,
And so I'll be awarding, I'll let him know tomorrow. But an $11 difference on 2 quotes is pretty interesting.
that isn't,
Yeah. And we're acting like we own the property. We've mowed the grass, and Wendell has poison ivy because of it, he says.
I think we waived that claim as part of the purchase
Yeah,
agreement.
it's,
I'll take a look at that. That's, so those are just a couple of quick updates.
Okay.
Always something going.
okay. All right, any questions about upcoming meeting agendas? Items?
I have a question for Mike. Mike, you were going to look into those quotes that we had the other day from whether the right language was given to Niblock or not. Remember those?
She's talking about the bid.
Oh,
Oh,
he-
bids.
Bids.
it's,
You
Yeah.
emailed us? Didn't read my email.
the bid package did not include any information on the water.
So they're redoing that.
No, we have a solution. So you'll be awarding the contract to Reach Riley on
There's in
Thursday.
their emails.
Yeah, I'll have to look at my email.
So we've come to a good resolution. The Biblock and Reach Riley are going to work together in a way that's good for everybody. I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay, other questions? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.